Okay, we should be live now. Thank you all so much for being with us today. We've got yet another great update in store for you. Before we dive in, I did wonder, how many of you have currently incorporated threat modeling into your SDLC? If it's a yes or a no, feel free to drop it into the chat, just so we can make this a bit interactive and you can share your experiences and what you're doing at your company. And then if you do have questions, you can ask throughout at any time. We've got the Q&A at the bottom. Thank you, Eric, for that. Or you can use the chat, whatever your preference. And just in case you don't know who we are yet, we won't hold that against you, don't worry. So we are IriusRisk, and we want to secure as much software across the globe as we possibly can. And we believe it shouldn't matter if you are in development, in security, in the compliance team, that you should still be able to take the steps that you need to achieve secure by design while adhering to your industry standards. And what can you expect today? So we're talking about the software development lifecycle, of course, and as it is a continuous loop, you could argue there's not the perfect place to start or end. We may jump across sections within it, and that's just to help us articulate the value that can be seen across various parts of the lifecycle. We have got some demos pre-prepared to help bring to life what you can do with threat modeling to support your existing efforts. And a couple of those we've recorded ahead of time. That is firstly, so we can stick to 1 hour of content. It's quite hard to pack this in to 60 minutes and be respectful of your time. But also we wanted to ensure that we're kind of showing you the best parts in a really concise and useful manner. And then we'll also share a little bit of an update later in terms of some AI developments that are literally a few weeks away. So we thought, while you're here, we may as well give you a bit of a sneak preview. And then helping me to do this today, we've got two wonderful speakers. So we've got Erwin Solis, who is one of our senior solution architects, so part of the global engineering team that supports our new and existing customers. And then we also have our head of security research as well, which is Adrian Bettage. And that team, in case it's not clear exactly what they do, they're responsible for all of the security content, so components, standards, and so on and so forth. So thank you both very much for being here. So I'm just going to see if anyone did reply to my question. Most people saying not yet or only a little that they are introducing threat modeling into their SDLC. So I see why you're all here. Someone else just put, you're willing to implement, but you're just learning. Brilliant. You are all very welcome here. Thank you for interacting with us. We appreciate that a lot. So let's jump into this content, which is of course about SDLC. Understandably, we are quite heavy on the front end phases being a threat modeling solution. But the benefits carry throughout, and that's why we're all here, and that's what we wanted to discuss with you. So it may be that as we start going through this, you think, oh, okay, threat modeling doesn't take place here. It's happened earlier, but the value you see happens elsewhere, and it helps with integrating within other tech stacks and so on. And so that is enough of me talking. Adrian, I believe you are going to kick us off with this section.
All right, thank you very much, Claire, and welcome everybody. I think now hearing from you guys that a lot of people might not be familiar with threat modeling by itself, I think many times the clarification might help that there is a bigger scheme or more the practice of secure by design, and within that you have one tool that we can call threat modeling. And just traditionally that is more in the AppSec space. So a lot of times, if you're not from the AppSec space, maybe you didn't come across that term. Maybe you came across the term of secure by design if you're more from an architecture background. But these really play into the same the same avenue of security practices. With that, I want to go over the secure software development lifecycle, and really here, as Claire mentioned, it is a cycle, but I think ideally we start with the plan phase, because that's where you really want to make sure that you plan the purpose of your system or your application thoroughly. So with that, what you're going to factor in here is really the business priorities, applicability of, and the context, what you are building, and what might not be applicable for what you are building. In the same sense, how IriusRisk can support with that is it can give you the chance to weight using CIA criteria, so confidentiality, integrity, and availability criteria. What is most important and which assets are most important in your design. That will then, in effect, this will affect the risk score that IriusRisk creates from that. Now, in those risk scores, you can also factor in any type of audit exercises that you have, any type of findings, anything that really feeds into that from the feedback section here, from continuous feedback. Now, the key stakeholders in this exercise are traditionally, and of course that's not an exhaustive list, but traditionally solution architects, you might have enterprise architects, and then security architects and engineers. And depending how far you are on the shift left journey, that list could be expanded. Any questions for this first phase?
I've got one for you. That's okay.
Sure.
So what unexpected security risks have you seen emerge during the build phase that could have been mitigated earlier? I feel like this is a common occurrence, so it'd be great if you could help bring that to life.
For sure, yeah. I think there is a fundamental mistake that anyone can make, and that is building the wrong solution. And it sounds trivial, but that can introduce security risks. If a team is not, as an example, if a team is not aware of the limitations that an underlying platform brings with it. So let's say the underlying platform does not provide any type of monitoring or logging out of the box. That responsibility usually falls onto the application team in that sense. And an application team, for them, they assume that's core platform responsibility. So it's not their forte. It's not something that they really want to deal with, because it takes attention away from core application design. And this is really where we see how the plan phase really introduces problems early on in this cycle, if not done right.
Thank you very much for that. Just seeing if we've got any more. Okay. I may as well ask this next one here, actually. So you mentioned about solution architects, security engineers, and involving them early during that planning phase. Can that really change the trajectory of a secure design?
Yeah, I think definitely, because in my opinion, effective secure designs, which is the overall goal here, they shouldn't need to shift left, they should really start left. And the only way to make sure of that is if the solution architects receive design patterns, maybe in the form of templates, when we speak about IriusRisk, that factor in security from the very beginning. Because solution architects, their main concern might not be security, but it should be baked into their work. And something like design patterns are a way of making sure that security is built into every single exercise.
We've had a question from Gavin as well. How does threat modeling fit into the agile workflow?
I think it fits in well, in the same sense, like it's connected to your last question, Claire, where I think it should be kind of a broader consciousness across the company and all stakeholders. So in an ideal world, and really taking in security awareness across the company, it becomes less of security told me to do something, like, the police in a way, and it turns more into we're collectively building something, and security is now a quality measure, rather than something that oh my God, I went 10 miles over or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Hope that answers your question. Keep them coming, so it does help. I'm actually going to ask a question to the audience as we just continue chatting. I'll paste it in the chat now as well. But I'm just curious, those of you that are doing this, are most of your efforts at the build phase or the plan phase, or do you prioritize other stages? So just let us know in the chat. So again, it would just be interesting to hear how you're doing it at your company. Sorry, back to you, Adrian. Just it's nice to get some feedback in real time of what people are doing.
For sure, yeah, no problem, no problem. I think the main thing here is when we talk about this, a challenge we see many times is how to make sure that these personas, like enterprise architects, solution architects, they actually start designing in a way that security architects can pick that up. And there are multiple ways of doing this. Now, one very exciting feature that we are working on right now and that will release rather soon is that designing in IriusRisk by itself will not consume a license anymore. And that I'm really excited about, because that enables solution architects and enterprise architects to start drawing in IriusRisk, and then security architects and engineers taking over right there without having to do any imports, without having to be conscious of any type of licensing at that point. Because only at the point you hit you generate the threat model and you pull the threats and countermeasures, that's when it starts consuming a license. But just the design itself can easily be kicked off by any type of architect, and that's a really, really cool one. Now, with that, I'd like to jump into into really where you start to work with the issue trackers, where you start to go into how to prioritize any type of tasks coming out of that plan phase. And for that, Erwin was kind enough to put together a little demo, so it becomes more and more tangible for everyone.
Yes, I will grab that now. Oh, need to move it over to this screen. Can you confirm you can see that, please? Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Let's bring that back to the beginning. I'm excited about this. You're going to see quite a few things on here. So we'll give you all a moment after this to digest it and get your questions coming. I can see a few more have come in. We will answer those in just a second.
Hello to the audience. As a heads up, I'll be editing these recordings for time, as there's much to cover here in the planning phase. We provide many avenues to getting a functional data flow diagram and threat model, whether it's sourced from existing diagrams, infrastructure as code, imported directly from your cloud infrastructure, or by feeding your code or project documentation into our AI Jeff for a first pass at creating the threat model. However your threat model happens to have been created or imported into IriusRisk, the platform will ultimately provide you with a view of what your planned projects look like in terms of compliance and required countermeasures. The output from IriusRisk provides feedback to your organization and can affect the use of a particular service or technology. Technology and provider choices may change based off of those findings, which is what shifting left is all about. It's about getting better outcomes by catching design issues early and making better decisions as early as possible. Once a design is vetted, IriusRisk smoothly transitions you into the build phase, which Adrian will cover more in a few minutes. Here we demo another capability of our AI Jeff, which analyzes the output from your design. As Adrian mentioned, this is called Smart Views. Smart Views use Jeff to generate analysis reports on which standards to apply for optimal coverage, analysis on high impact items, easy wins, or even just prioritizing anything that has yet to be addressed. So we use our AI to make it easier to identify actionable items at various stages of the threat model's maturity, and most importantly, provide guidance in prioritizing those items quickly and efficiently. This leads us directly to inserting those findings into your SDLC via our issue tracker integration. So once again, smoothly blending into the build phase, the Jira integration that you see here feeds actionable items into your development workflow. But it's here that we bring another AI-powered capability forward with another AI of ours called Bex. Again, in the spirit of aiding users in identifying the next steps and helping to keep the process moving forward, Bex provides guidance via an initial assessment of the ticket, which includes its own risk rating. It will subsequently provide a list of recommended actions which the target user can track as implemented towards addressing the concerns raised in the ticket. The user can even use the comment section of the Jira ticket to have a conversation with Bex and even get sample code from it. In this example, I asked Bex to get some sample Puppet code that will address this Nginx issue going forward. Notice that Bex provides an explanation of the code provided, a how-to section, security considerations to be aware of, and instructions for testing the solution as well. All these capabilities combine to help you make good design decisions, helps you to prioritize the resulting work that needs to be done, and provide guidance on how to address each issue. All that covered, we can pass it back to Adrian.
Wonderful. Right, let me just put that video away. Hopefully you can see my screen again. Thank you for doing that, Erwin. Now, Erwin is here. I know, obviously, you haven't had a chance to speak live yet, but please do ask your questions because we have two brilliant minds here today. I did see, JP, you've asked, is there a list of integrations we can integrate with? Yes, we do have that, which I will share the link in just a second because my multitasking has a limit, but I will paste that in just a sec. And then is Bex AI available for other issue trackers? At the moment, it is just Jira. And you can see the marketplace link that we've pasted in there. Obviously, that changes in future. We shall let you know, but we have got a little bit more to share on Bex shortly. And will the video be available on YouTube? Yes, of course, Milton. It should be online tomorrow at the latest. And then what we'll do is we'll email the recording. We'll send you all these links as well, so you have everything in one. And there's a couple more questions, but I just wanted to hang on in case there's any specifically for Erwin. Okay, so the ones that we are yet to answer. JP, currently we don't have an integrated team just yet. I'm currently hoping to help move my company into more of a security aspect, especially before we go to the cloud. Okay. Erwin or Adrian, would you have any advice or comments on that? It's in the chat if you need to reread. That's from JP further up.
I'll go ahead and field it. I think it was more of a comment, but it's definitely the correct approach to be taking, right? In transitioning to the cloud, you want to make sure that you have a good understanding of how to, take your existing controls and translate those into your platforms of choice, and to make sure that your organization is in a practice of maintaining controls and policies in place prior to going to the cloud, as opposed to learning those lessons after the fact when your data, your services might be compromised at a grand scale, right? So definitely the right approach.
Maybe to add to that, JP, what I understand the question to be is more if we can import from any of these hyperscaler resources, and the answer is yes, and we're working to expand those. With AWS, we're very much ready to do that. With Azure, we're working on those. So yeah, code base, that is exactly what you can do. So for AWS and for Azure, the idea here is that you can hook up your instances on the hyperscaler and then it imports your resources right away. And since you're talking about code base, I think what's important here as well is that you are able to import from like infrastructure as code resources.
Yeah. Thank you both very much. And then Sergio, I think you are answering my earlier questions. You've said that you prioritize in the code phase. However, we want to implement security from the planning phase, but looks not an easy task since most of the team has already solutions deployed. Okay, this is a good point. How could that situation be managed when teams didn't do any threat modeling at the beginning? That is a fantastic question. Thank you for that, Sergio.
Maybe I can take that one. I think that's a tough one because no company starts off greenfield. You always have some technical debt. You'll always have some conditions and limitations to work around with, and that's pretty normal, I think. That's what we see in general. So when you do a threat model, in a similar sense than design thinking, you start off with what you want to secure, but you then pretty quickly go into your limitations and your trust zones, you would say, in threat modeling, where you say this is in scope, this is out of scope, and I assign different trust ratings to different aspects of my architecture and design. And just as a general recommendation to make sure this is a manageable task for a company that might have an installed base that's already big, reducing that scope for the initial threat models might really help to get them to fruition. So if you say you have system A, you have system B, you have system C, maybe do them individually for those systems and then look into the bigger picture, how they interact with each other and how they what threats might stem from that.
Thank you very much for that, Adrian. I think we've got through all those questions. Keep them coming. I just thought, so Erwin, you touched on smart views in that video, in that demo recording, which I know it was a high level kind of run through, but could you give us a little bit more context as to how that might help a business and maybe a GRC team to make some quicker decisions by using the new smart views?
Right. So normally when you're looking at the output of a threat model, you have you have raw data that you have to sift through. Um, and you have to weigh a lot of things when sifting through that data, including what the cost or the lift or the weight of a particular fix might be, the impact that might have on the business, the time it might take to implement something, questions around whether or not the necessary resources are in place to meet a certain timeline or a certain target when it comes to securing a particular product or service or whatever it is that you're designing. The smart views use just AI, a language learning model to analyze the content of those of that entire output, right? So we're not just talking about looking at calculated risk ratings, but actually consuming the details and the content inside each one of those findings, those threats and countermeasures, and then looking at the entire output and weighing everything in a concise and completely objective way, which is something that AI is great for. So those views allow you to target different areas of that output and prioritize exactly what's needed. And the different options that we provide can certainly be used at different phases of the maturity of the threat model. But it's all about using an AI to sort of do the heavy lifting and all the dirty work of assessing everything that your threat model is actually outputting. So it's all about getting to prioritizing what's important as fast as possible.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was very helpful. We've also got, of course, reports that's just popped in my mind. So on top of the AI helping with the filtering and providing that additional focus of where to start, there's also the 4 reports. We've got technical threats, countermeasures, there's a compliance report, which you can also just have one particular standard applied and shown in that report. So just wanted to highlight that as well in case people hadn't begun using them as yet. So I think we need to move on to continuous integration. Is that the next one, Adrian?
Yeah, I think we're with Erwin's demo, we're right in the build phase, ready to move into continuous integration. I think the build phase is really then where you'd start, where the coding happens and where you put into practice what you've been designing in the plan phase. So the one thing I wanted to mention here is, of course, something like IriusRisk can really help more personas than just security folks. Because here, when you're in the issue tracker and with Bex that Erwin showcased, you're in the realm of a software engineer. You're in the realm of what software engineers would work with most predominantly. So I think that is a good example, because one thing also that we knew is that software engineers, if they don't need to, they don't want to log into any type of security tool. They want their information where they get their work done, and that's where IriusRisk can help, even create value in the issue trackers themselves. So in general, in those build phases, obviously you have multiple stakeholders. You could have security architects, engineers, software engineers, even network and system administrators if you're talking about building the design for a system, right? Now, with that, you're getting into how do I actually fit this into the landscape that I actually have, and then we're right in the continuous integration phase, where you just connect what you've built with any type of remaining landscape that you might have. You can leverage CI/CD tools, issue trackers, scanning software, and so forth. Now, with that, we do have a little demo prepared where Erwin's going to show how this could work with CI/CD tools, with scanning software.
I was just getting it ready. I wasn't meaning to interrupt you.
Oh,
Can
no,
you
all
can you
good.
see it on there? You see it? Okay.
Ready to go.
Amazing. Right, let's do this.
Okay, here's a quick demonstration of a pipeline in Jenkins that uses some basic IriusRisk criteria to pass or fail a build. It works by making API calls to IriusRisk to determine if there are required countermeasures. It also checks to see if any implemented items have not yet been tested. In this example, the criteria are that at least one countermeasure be implemented and that the countermeasure test status be passed, and that there's no countermeasures in a required state. Here we see this run passing. And if we head over to IriusRisk and create some required items or just fail the test on an implemented countermeasure, we can see that the run will now fail. There is, of course, a lot of flexibility around how such a pipeline gets triggered in the first place and how the output can feed into other automations. The goal of this example is to simply demonstrate how IriusRisk can help prevent builds with known and addressable security concerns from reaching the deployment phase. With that demonstrated, I'll pass it back to Adrian.
Everyone's really impressed with my multitasking skills today. Thank you for doing that, Erwin. So I know we kind of sped it up a little bit so that it shortened the time a little. So any questions on there? And actually, just while we hang on a moment, I asked what design tools people are using, and we've had Lucidchart, Draw.io. So actually, if I can just mention about importing from other diagramming tools, because we can do that as well. We've actually made some really great improvements to Draw.io, so you can fully import, and it captures all of the information and all the shapes get pulled across and so on. And then we can also import others with mapping files. So Lucidchart, Visio, Terraform Plan, CloudFormation, Microsoft Threat Modeling Tool. Am I missing any, Erwin? I think that's all. Sounds about right. Yeah, you're nodding. Okay, great. So just wanted to highlight that we can also import those. But back to Adrian's point, there's also the diagramming only option coming soon. So if you wanted to, then you could also diagram an IriusRisk without using licenses too. Okay, have we got any more? Yeah, and other threat modeling tools. Yeah, thank you, Akhilesh. So have we got on here? We've covered that. So I'm just going through my list of questions. Okay. All right. So I've got a couple of questions here around Jenkins. So how exactly does this help identify risks earlier and catch and prevent that insecure code from going live?
I can
So
maybe start with that one, and Erwin, if you wanna expand. So with that, you'd have any type of feedback, and this could help you have some sort of a gating mechanism to prevent insecure code from actually making it into any type of deployment, right? Into being before being published. So there you can determine whether a build phase would pass or fail. And I'm sure Erwin has a little more to say on that one as well.
right, because there's actually a couple of places where there might be feedback. So initially, um, when a build fails because of, like, for example, in the demonstrated criteria, um, that's feedback back to the actual product teams to let them know that there is something that needs to be delivered for compliance reasons. That's something that needs to be implemented, and that without it, the solution that's going out the door is potentially has a vulnerability and or some kind of industry standard or compliance issue associated with it. So that example, focuses on making sure that those compliance checks are made. There's various other things that could be done with your tools, including, having them scan repos, looking for, infrastructure as code files, and then feeding that back to IriusRisk via our API to actually generate, a threat model, right? Because in the same way that you can import, infrastructure as code and other formats into the IriusRisk UI to generate a threat model, you can also use our API. So your pipeline tool may be used to automate or provide feedback based on content changes in a repo back to your IriusRisk model, and that can include everything from versioning your threat model after changes have been merged in to a product or a project or a piece of code. And then having IriusRisk, provides, or the pipeline provides some kind of notification, even via Slack, regarding those changes, including a diff between versions that's produced by IriusRisk. So there's a lot, a lot that's possible when it comes to these pipeline tools. They're obviously like Swiss Army knives, and what you can do with IriusRisk is really just limited to what's possible with the API.
Perfect. Thank you for giving that extra insight. Very helpful. So, Adrian, are we moving on to deployment?
Yes, absolutely. So with the deployment, obviously, once you've designed, once you've built it, once you've integrated it, that's when we're talking about go live. And that's where we make all the changes and where it actually hits our core system. Now, there, obviously, you have DevOps teams, you might have system network administrators making the changes, you might have software engineers really making the changes, putting them live. So this is obviously a crucial step that gets us ready for the operational phase. Now, any questions pertaining threat modeling or kind of how security plays into that role?
None specifically have come through, but I guess we could maybe cover like unexpected behaviors after deployment or some other common challenges that maybe it can support with.
Yeah, so I think the big part here is then if you catch any type of if you catch any type of errors early on, then you're really helping yourself out during this deploy phase, right? Because if you have to fix things and delay go live dates because of those, that is usually linked to high costs. That is reputational damage potentially. There are a whole bunch of risks that are associated with that. So in software development and in a similar sense in cybersecurity, any type of bugs or security flaws that you can even avoid or address early on, you will be able to cut out exponential remediation costs. And I think that is really a big value add how threat modeling and threat modeling exercise, secure design exercises will help you in your deploy phase and with your go live.
Yeah, really, really valid points there. You've sort of answered this to some extent, but someone's asked, what's the biggest risk you see teams missing when they move to the deployment stage?
Yeah, I think that is a big one. When they go to the deployment phase, I think the biggest risk is not being ready for it, you know, and even worse, not being aware that they are not ready for it. And I think some threat modeling exercises and tools like IriusRisk, they can provide you with a to-do list that is catered to the key stakeholders. So like we said earlier, software engineers that really now have it in the workspace that they are working in, but also broken down to what they can actually influence in a design and in the further steps. And they really walk alongside and support the SDLC. They can also be prioritized based on the business objectives and most valuable assets that you might have. So I think with all of this together, it helps you being ready for that deploy phase and for that go live.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said earlier, that addressing issues as early as possible, reducing those costs. There are a lot of studies that talk to how much a bug costs at the design versus going into production, aren't there? I mean, certainly we reference that as a big reason for lots of companies to decide to threat model, because they've realized those costs that, oh my gosh, we need to be saving and also releasing more secure code.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with that, I think from the deploy phase, obviously that kicks off the phase that most people will, or most companies rather, will spend most time in, and that's the operational phase. As we spend most time in there, it's also kind of the business as usual, but important. It is very important that business as usual feeds back into what we might want to change in the future. Now, in this operational phase, you're still talking about you're talking to administrators, any type of system network administrators, but you're also talking about risk management. As we are detecting risks, we might be detecting vulnerabilities as we go. So these teams are then involved to make sure that we keep track of those. And that obviously have what I mentioned, influencing the overall design of any type of changes in the future. That spills then into the continuous feedback phase. Any questions that you guys might have around those two phases?
Just wondering if there's anything else we can add around the findings you get by this point and that looping back into the planning and decisions, because of course we had that question about, I think it might have been from Sergio, sorry if I'm quoting the wrong person, that said they're not doing threat modeling, or they didn't right at the beginning, they're doing it later. So I'm just thinking, is there anything else we can say that kind of helps if you've done it later, how that can contribute back to your iteration of that design?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So if you think of exercises that might happen during the operational phase and then spilling into continuous feedback, you could have internal audits, you could have external auditors coming in, you could have any type of QA, quality control, quality assurance exercises. You might undergo certifications in that space. You might even have pen testers come in as part of an audit, There are all types of exercises that could happen in those two phases. And at IriusRisk, we've talked to a lot of pen testers, we've talked to a lot of folks in that space, and how a threat modeling tool could support their work. And what they've told us is many times companies have a bottleneck of budget. So these type of engagements, be it audit, be it pen testing, be it anything else, they have to run on a much tighter time frame now. So what really helps them, and I remember actually one conversation where the pen testers told me that now their engagements are cut down to 2 weeks. So they might need almost 1 work week to get to know the system, and then they only have 1 week left to actually perform any type of penetration tests and hacking simulations. Now, with that very short time frame, what they benefit from is a list of priorities, what to test. Maybe flaws that we've identified before in a design phase already, or anything else that could feed into that and give them type of some kind of a map what to test against.
Yeah, that's really valid points, because there seems to be even more pressure added to pen testers, and it is costly. It's valuable, but it's costly. So it's great that, you know, I don't want there to be this misconception that threat modeling means you don't pen test, or you shouldn't, or, you know, that's taking pen testers' jobs away. That's not the case at all. It's just providing that targeted focus to support those roles that are already under pressure, so they can still do really great work, essentially, but in a more focused way. And we may as well talk. I mean, we're coming towards the end now. We've got a couple of slides to round up with, but also audits, because auditing, I know that may not sit with the development team, the security team, but that's still required by management and so on. And so that's something else that we track, don't we, within IriusRisk as well. So that can contribute to other records that need to be held.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a lot of technical folks now will probably cringe because they're like, oh no, we're leaving my comfort space now. At the end of the day, I think what we're doing here is identifying flaws, identifying risks, right? And why do we do that? We do that to drive investment decisions. And the only way to do that is if we feed that back into senior management decision makers. And that is essentially what's happening during this continuous feedback loop. So anything we identify, be it through catered audit reports that IriusRisk can generate, anything that supports that case of a CISO towards the board saying, these are the investment decisions we have to take because it lowers our risk by so and so much. This is exactly what a CISO needs to get funding from the C-level. And that is why these exercises of threat modeling are so important, because it makes these findings and these reports so much more valuable in underlining the overall plea of a CISO towards the board.
Thank you, Adrian. Oh, we've had an AI question. It was only a matter of time. We are currently in the era of artificial intelligence. Yep. What automation or integration of AI may we anticipate in the IriusRisk future? So there is a long answer to that, a very long, interesting answer, which we can put you in touch with our chief scientist, Fraser Scott, to run through that kind of roadmap in more detail. It is really exciting. We have got a TLDR essentially in a moment where we will give you some insight as to what's coming up. So we'll answer that shortly, if that's okay. We're almost at the end, so we will have time for it. And then we have had a couple more. We're a small team shifting towards a security first mindset, with just myself as an analyst and a DevOps engineer with some security focus. How can IriusRisk help teams like ours build effective threat models and improve security?
I can start off. Erwin might have some points to that. But I think one thing we've introduced with, I believe, 4.41, so the last release, not the current, the latest one, was a better onboarding for anyone who might not be familiar to IriusRisk as a platform, but also to threat modeling overall. So it really walks you through how to generate the diagram, where to start off with, because obviously you have a ton of components that you can choose from. and only a few might be relevant to you. So we keep making improvements to the UI to support that and to make it easier. But that onboarding really walks you through what you need to consider and what you need to start off with.
Yep, brilliant, thank you.
And I'll just add to that real quick that we have a customer success organization here that works very closely with customers during onboarding phases, which includes not just training over the product, but encouraging teams to create their first initial threat models so that we can provide professional feedback and guidance and best practices, and sort of help teams get started on their journey. As an organization, we do provide that support to our customers. So that's the first thing. And the only other thing that I can provide as advice in terms of how to get value out of the solution is to just focus on iteration as much as you can early on, so that you can get an understanding of what the attack surfaces are associated with various surfaces and their various technologies, so that you can, just make better decisions initially when you're considering, the nuts and bolts, the architecture of that's backing a particular solution.
Wonderful advice, thank you. We've also got things like in-product guidance as well to get you started, and we'll also share a link in a second for our IriusRisk Academy. So if you wanted to fast track some knowledge, like some hands-on labs types of things, we've got that, and you also get certified by doing that as well. So we'll share that link in a moment. Okay, so we just wanted to share a little bit around, we've done them already. One step ahead, JP, thank you. So we just wanted to share a little bit about Bex AI, because this is a kind of a newer part. Jeff was first. I'm sure several of you may have been on webinars or some videos of Jeff, of how it helps you to create your threat model, the question one, what are we working on? And then now we've got smart views generated from Jeff AI. And as this grows and grows, we're aiming to integrate more of our AI solutions together. We're even looking at model context protocol, MCP as well. And then in terms of what Bex's future looks like, this coming soon. So analysis, including context from parent tasks and epics. And then you get informed when your task needs a formal threat model. It's literally like a button, it's a recommendation, and you can hit that and it will open the threat model for you. Those two are literally coming next month. And then this one from related tasks, that's a little bit further away, a couple of months, but these two are imminent. So if you haven't yet installed Bex, we appreciate at the moment it's on Jira only. So only if you've got a Jira Cloud can you go and install that for free. But if that's possible, we do recommend you go and do it, have a try, because it's kind of like having a helpful security assistant built in, especially if security is not your role or you're limited with team resources and things like that. So just wanted to highlight that. And probably there will be a dedicated AI webinar, which I think provisionally we've got in for the end of July. Obviously, that's not available on the website just yet because that's hot off the press. But towards the end of July, we will have a dedicated AI kind of workshop. So you'll all be very welcome to come to that as well. And that is pretty much it. We have got some time for a few more questions if you have them. Just checking the comments and QA, nothing right now. So as I said, we've got the IriusRisk Academy, which some of you have already done, which is awesome. We also, in case obviously you haven't purchased IriusRisk and you're just exploring if this is the right solution for you, you can go and try Community Edition, which has Jeff. So you can still use Jeff to build your threat model. You can still use Smart Views because that's literally got released on Saturday. So that's brand new. Go and take a look. You can create 3 active threat models, which is a great start. And then when you're ready, if you need to, you can move on to Enterprise and still manage your cost with things like archiving licenses that we've also recently added in to kind of help with managing and predicting costs. And then finally, Threat Modeling Connect, our global community, which has about 14,000 members now, and Community Edition, we're up to over 17,000 people using that. I'm just pasting all those links in the chat for you. So yeah, That's it. This has been us. We've had a great discussion with you all. Thank you, Erwin and Adrian, for bringing your expertise. You've really, really helped bring this discussion to life. And then thank you all of you that stayed on with us until the end and for asking all your questions. It's been really great. And you will receive the recording tomorrow. And with that, we shall see you at a webinar soon. Cheerio.